Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Roach Wiggle, November 17th, 2022. I just had the hiccups. Like, I took a drink of this beverage, and the hiccups started, and they seem to have subsided, which is, my hair's all uneven, which is kind of unusual. So if I make any weird noises, it's that. Got a little bit of spasming going on there still. So let's see who's here. Riding the body electric. Martin, good to see you. Jojo Macro. Gonna put a pin in that statement for 1 second, Jojo. Tennyson, good to see you. Alan. Jose Nunez. New name. Welcome. Anthony Green. Wow, we got a lot of people here already. Jojo Macro. The heat packs arrived today, so I am in the middle of coordinating. I had anticipated they would arrive much later. It seems like USPS has gotten up to olden days quality in the last month, and several boxes that I sent out on Tuesday actually arrived. Like, priority mail boxes arrived in like 2 days. It's actually pretty crazy how well USPS has been doing lately. Some eggs, good to see you. So yes, heat packs are here, and I was like, oh boy, heat packs aren't going to arrive until probably this weekend or next week, and I'm not going to be able to ship next week, and blah blah blah. And now it seems like I might be able to get some things moving early next week. I still have Junior, Chris, and JoJo. You guys, the last three, obviously, of stuff, auction holdovers, and our weather tanked. I think we got our first hard frost today. After up until like a week and a half ago, it was in like the 70s, and then it just literally overnight dropped like 30 or 40 degrees. It's crazy. Hello, Chain. So yeah, it's the weather's been weird, and now it's supposed to warm up again. We were definitely in full-on Indian summer for a good period of time. Yeah, this is looking like December or February weather now. We got nighttime highs in the low 20s and stuff. Next week it will be getting up into the 40s, which is good. That's like late February weather here. Usually good for me to start shipping priority, actually. But we also have the national holiday on Thursday, so that's, throws a wrench in things. So 4 inches of snow for several days. Frost is long ago, from Chris Snyder. Yeah, some parts of Michigan have had snow accumulate and then disappear. We had a little bit and then it was gone. Actually kind of forgot that it happened. Everything was winter wonderland for a day, and then it was just poof when things warmed up a little bit. So let's see, things to talk about today. We got that boring shipping type stuff discussed. But more important things, bug things. I had a couple things I was going to talk about. And I can pull up my Discord. I don't feel like it. Some isopod stuff. So Nathan Jones has been a wonderful asset. I think I brought up that I was going to talk. It's annoying me. The relative asymmetry. There we go. Nathan Jones has been a wonderful resource for all kinds of Blasty, all kinds of isopod knowledge, taxonomy, pathology, all kinds of stuff. Also, hello, bit by the birding bug. And so I've been picking his brain here and there and sending him my thoughts on some things too. Sent him some specimens last week to look at. So he has some colonies of pure lavas and lava crosses, some isopods from Alabama that need ID. So lots of fun things. And where's I going with this? There was a fungus that he had just recently sent me, or maybe Derek Niehaus had sent. that may be traced back to Nathan about a fungus that affects the muscle tissue in crustaceans and causes a weird marbled phenotype. And I believe that might be what's responsible for some non-genetic piebalds and some weird colors in some species like Porcellio sevilla, their species Seville, and Civi. I don't know how you pronounce it. I think it's Spanish. And what's in Hoffmannsegii. I think that maybe those Cali mix Porcellio levis might actually be a strain that is infected with it, but non-lethally, which is why they continue to propagate. Because I've tried to isolate those for many years to get, without the wild types, nothing ever took. They did live a long time often, so there's maybe some complex interaction going on there. So that's interesting. So we got that. There was another pathogen that we were talking about the role of Wolbachia maybe in some groups of isopods and causing some unique phenotypes and may be responsible for moving genes and stuff around. Yeah, so a lot of that going on, how several groups within the genus Cubaris and many things being traded as Cubaris aren't Cubaris, which we already figured, we already knew, but that there may be clades within Cubaris. It may be, I guess, genetic work would need to be done, but it might be paraphyletic or something like that. Evo Devo chain says disease a very underrated driver of Evo Devo. But apparently Nathan is getting a at-home sequencing machine or something, so he can do this work or do work from home of this sort. He's going to sequence the lavas and the other things and see what's going on genetically there. So he may do the other stuff, Cubaris and Nasodillo. Yeah, so that's really exciting. I've kind of lost the fire for, at least today, I don't have the fire for screaming about Cubaris and all that other stuff. I'm just glad there's somebody who's working on it and is pretty active and is very talkative. That's always wonderful for getting information. Chris Snyder says, I need a machine to go the other way. I want to write genetic code and have the machine print the resulting creature. What horrors would you create with this sort of power is my question. Probably things that look like some of our domestic animals as is. Let's see, what else is going on? The Princessia van Weerebecki that I received from TJ, which came from, can't remember, somebody else in the United States, who's Evi something, Evie something, Eli Cole something. I have to ask TJ if you're here. You can correct me on who it is, or I might be completely wrong on remembering the name. Not black and white's bit by the birding bug. This is supposedly old U.S. stock, which was distributed as not big or whatever the other things were for it. Eli Castro, that sounds about right, Alan. So I lost my colony. It was a long spiral. When I lived with my parents, there were times they did really well. No, not the Androhomanos. I still have my pair of those. They're still good, but both TJ and I haven't gotten any babies yet. But this other strain, this is the old U.S. stock that was from like Dexter Davson, that was unique from the Androhomanas and unique from everything else. Not even what has been labeled as Grenadieri tiger hissers. You can see they're on my site still. I still have them listed, even though over time I lost the colony and I never was able to replace them because a lot of stock was compromised with Oblongonota, or seems like they were mixed with the tiger hissers, at some point. Because there's some went to see Dan Griner last year at Christmas, and before Dan got out of hissers, he showed me this colony of Princessia that he had received from somebody. And at first I got really excited. I was like, oh yeah, these look cool, these look pure. And then over time, as I was looking at them, I was like, okay, that one doesn't have the pronotum notch. Okay, that one's solid black. It was sort of nitpicked and realized that they were not. It was not pure stock. And so it was really, TJ and I were both kind of bummed. We didn't know if the standard Princessia, the actual Princessia non-hybrid, the original line that goes back to like 2008 or whatever, was still in the United States. And so Eli Castro got them from me, or got them from maybe Cape Cod Roaches like a while ago or something like that. Anyway, so the point is here, I got maybe like 10 from TJ, I want to say last spring, or maybe before that, maybe even last late winter, that is from this Eli Castro stock. And I think I only ended up with 2 females. I wasted one female pairing her up with one of my old males. I think she's somewhere around here in one of these other enclosures. And the other female I just left in the communal thing with all these males, and she did reproduce, and the babies did phenomenal, and they're maturing now. And so far, everything that's maturing looks like the old stock. It looks pure to me. Nice consistency of coloration and pronotum shapes and whatnot. So this would be great, because I was really bummed that I lost those. It was like the last major U.S. hisser, and they never were really common, but I had them in good numbers when I lived with my parents at times, and then again it was just sort of a trickle off from there, and I never really got them to pick up steam again after the move and the second move and the this and the that. So now I have a colony. Presumably they're going to culture. What is that flying around? It's like a pyralis or something. So now I have hopefully a colony, and can propagate them en masse and get them out and about, and hopefully they'll continue to do just as well as all of my other hissers are doing. The Masolas are doing great. Again, the Androhomanas have not had babies, but they're big and healthy. And at this point, the Portentosa, the wild stock Portentosa, is it's kind of crazy how fecund they are. And also interesting how the Princessia are not as, or at least the Androhomana stock is not quite as up to speed. Good evidence that they're not the same species, at least, considering I'm raising them in near identical conditions, except although the Androhomanas are not at the same density. Well, no, I start with a pair of both of them. So yeah, that's a pretty good indicator that there's something else going on there. So at least, even if there's synonymization and Princessia gets collapsed into ground Rhina, I would still say they should be different species based on, they may have concurrent ranges and stuff like that, but there seems to be some difference in gestation and some other things between them. Okay, let me go check the chat here. Do I ever think that Megaloblad will? So apparently people in Russia have them, and they popped up in Europe and Canada a few times over time, but nobody ever really got them going long term. I think from what I've seen and from the experiences that I've heard about with people with Megaloblada, the ooths take a long time to hatch. They're probably sensitive to desiccation, or maybe there was some gimmick with desiccating, then rehydrating, or something weird like that. So it's just gimmicky, I would think. So a lot of bugs are not difficult to raise, and do not have, they're insects in general. They breed pretty quickly, and they have quite a few offspring compared to something like a human or a rhinoceros. Okay, Alan says they're still in Russia, the Megaloblada are. But anyways, you just gotta find what the gimmick is to getting them to lay lots of eggs or to reproduce a bunch. Speaking of which, laying lots of eggs. So I collected Eleotes spinipes macrura not this September, the September before in Texas. I sent some larvae to TJ. He's been doing very well with them. In fact, I still have some of the original wild-caught adults that I am currently cooling and will be warming up soon. But I tried to do a larger communal pupating setup thing, and I think I too much clay. I think I overthought it, whatever. Nothing really happened. All the larvae that I put in either died or were in poor shape when I dug them out of there. So gigantic failure. But some larvae that I threw into to feed a panther chameleon that I had at the time actually pupated in the setup, and it was just coconut fiber, like 2 inches maybe, and some cedar chips on top of that, aged cedar chips, and a pair pupated in there. I was like, all right, sweet. But I didn't set them up quick enough, whatever reason. So I decided to cool the pair in the fridge I think I put them in late September, or maybe it was October. And I just sort of felt kind of on a whimish. I was like, I should probably pull those out of there. And so I pulled them out like a week ago or something like that, maybe less than that. And I was like, oh, you go make them hot. Oh, there you got to warm them up. I want them warm up really fast. And I was kind of all over the place with this. So I threw the container on top of the hisser cage downstairs next to the heat lamp. And unfortunately, the male passed. But the female, during the couple of days that the enclosure the little cup was warmed up, just shot out a bunch of eggs, like maybe 30 eggs. And so now I'm really hoping that that they're fertile, so I put her in her own setup and I put all the eggs in there too. I'm really hoping they're fertile so that I could get my F2 generation of Eleotes spinipes macrura. So yeah, you just got to find out what needs to be done. A lot of things, cooling. I don't know if moisture cycling is too important for a lot of things, although we do know it theoretically plays a pretty good role in getting Ectobius pallidus ooths to hatch. Dilo, good to see you. Asking how is people? Seems like everybody's pretty good today. Damn war's getting in the way of bugs. Speaking of babies, says Anthony Green, I have a group of Thuria olligrangiani and Pettivariana kept separate, received about a year ago. The olligrangiani are booming with oocyst eggs, but the Pettivariana, I have nothing. It was the same setup, same stock source, same life stage that you received, same everything, same density. This also reminds me, I had alluded to this during the auction, I think, but about the naming of Thuria pettivariana in the United States, and there was this whole thing. I have some personal experience with this situation, with supposedly the difference between Thuria pettivariana and Bernhardti are the length and shape of the hind wings and all this stuff. And this has been a big thing for a couple of years. It's been a stealth thing because there's not too many things that look similar to domino roaches in culture. But this has been a thing, and I talked to the person who supplied the stock and stuff for the type specimens for Bernhardti and all this other stuff. And then he had at some point thrown the two cultures with the different hind wing lengths or whatever in together, and apparently decided it didn't matter or something like that. And this was quite a while ago. So I'm kind of skeptical on the situation. I think that a lot of the older stock of the roaches in the United States came from universities, particularly from the Harvard Roach lab, and that doesn't mean that taxonomy doesn't change, or understanding doesn't change, and all this other stuff. But that's my assumption with the origins. Let's see if this thing ever refocuses. Okay, that's my assumptions for the origins of the domino roach stock in the United States. Where I'm going with this, though, was that there were some interesting implications. So when show bug, I show bug after. I gotta get this is pretty important actually. So in the last, I think 5 years, USDA APHIS has been delisting different insects from the interstate transport list thing, different organisms. And if you go and you look at that organism list, you'll be very surprised at how empty it is for a lot of things that people exchange. Things like all the isopods, all beetles, including native beetles, all insects, including native insects that have any sort of capability to be a plant pest in any capacity. They are so specific on these interstate transport list that they delist specific soil fungi, which is the problem with if you ever want to ship raw soil anywhere, is that who knows what sort of fungi and bacteria and whatnot are in the soil. And that's the thing that they're concerned about, is that somebody in California will send a soil sample to somebody in Florida for whatever reason, and they will throw it outside, and the fungal spores or bacteria or insects present will get out and cause the collapse of the citrus industry, things like that. So they have gone through the lengths to delist some very popular cockroach species. Apparently, the internal data of those institutions has decided that those species are not a risk to agriculture, unlike all the Cubaris and the Nasodillo and all the Porcellio and all the dynasties, and you'll go so on and so forth with all of this. So where this comes into play, though, is that in the list of cockroaches, or in the list of organisms there, they have the Latin name and the common name. And the Latin name for one of the roaches that has been delisted, and as is seen on the website, is Thuria pettiveriana, the domino cockroach. So what this means is that if labeling were to be updated and we were to finally come to a big happy harmony in the United States and big synonymizing event occurred, that it would go back to being technically to being not legal without permission to ship domino roaches across state lines. Now, it is clear that the institution is going off of the popular scientific names and the popular common names for the different species that they have listed on there, which is why they have, domino cockroach. There's no 50-year-old publication that refers to any of the Thuria species as dominoes, roaches, or anything like that. This is a vernacular that has been built up by the cockroach hobby in multiple facets over the last 30 or so years, basically. And so that's where they're getting their information from. Now, if I may be so snarky as to bring up some other interesting points, because obviously, this is an interesting situation. Another point is, looking at this list, they have delisted the cockroach Paratropes lateralis. Now, you may be wondering, why would they list the cockroach Paratropes lateralis? Has anybody in the United States ever bred Paratropes lateralis? Not to the general hobby's knowledge. If you were to ask me 15, 10, 5 years ago, if anybody in the United States had ever bred Paratropes lateralis on U.S. soil, I would say no. And if you ask me if anybody had ever had any experience with physical living specimens of Paratropes lateralis in the United States, I would say almost absolutely certainly not. So why did they delist Paratropes lateralis, a roach that nobody in the United States has ever cultured? You've seen a few Paratropes, really. But this was also, again, what this delisting was several years ago. You may see them occasionally. Somebody on the Roach forum will pop up and say something like, here's a picture of a wild roach that I saw, or saw them off of the All Pet Roach. Not even off the All Pet Roach's Angel Fire site. Some eggs, but in other countries, yes, they may have paratropies, but it's not a common cockroach to culture. In fact, it's more difficult, far more difficult to find than something like Simondoa or Archimandrita, etc. But here's the thing with that though is there's no, you would not go and look at any website having roaches on in the United States or on the Roach Forum and say, yes, Paratropes lateralis. This is a very common very common pet or feeder species on par with lobster roaches or hissing cockroaches. Oh yes, everybody has Paratropes lateralis. We should definitely add this to the list. What I'm thinking happened is maybe somebody didn't do their job ideally, or maybe somebody fat fingered something. I don't know. I think that there is an element of carelessness involved here. But what I think they intended to delist was Shelfordella lateralis, the Turkestan or red runner roach. I truly, truly believe that is what happened. Because if you look at this list, you'll see, oh yes, peppered roaches, oh yes, Blabrus giganteus, oh yes, Gromphodorina portentosa, oh yes, Elliptorina levigata, oh yes, Thuria pettivariana. You'll see all these very familiar roaches that have been available for quite a long time. But then you get to that and you're like, what? What? Yes, thank you. Some eggs. I'm going to just write it out here so everybody knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. So everybody says, what? You know, you look for them. Even just do a quick Google search for Paratropes lateralis. You can't even find. There's Philatera. I don't even think you can find images of Paratropes lateralis. There aren't even any images that are ID'd confidently down to species of Paratropes lateralis. If you go and look at the records, just looking on Google, I'm just going to look this species up on Google. Let's see. We have the Roach species file, a crappy page on animaldiversity.org showing the taxonomy, EOL.org, a Wikidata page, a Word.Wikipedia. I don't know what country this is for. It's not even in English. There's nothing anywhere about. Nobody even has pictures of this species. So yeah, that's what I think happened is they may have accidentally or something put in Paratropes lateralis when they actually meant Shelfordella lateralis, because that species is blatantly missing from the list and has been a very common feeder species for about 20 years. 20 years? No, not 20 years. For about 15 years. Maybe even 20 years. I think they only came to the United States in like the 70s or 80s or something like that. 80s, 90s? But anyways, so that was what I was bringing up with the domino cockroaches, is that currently on paper, it is more legal to send a box writhing with a bunch of domino cockroaches over state lines than it is to send a box with a handful of Cubaris of any species other than Murina. I think Murina might not even be on there, or could be, across state lines. But that was my point, is the implications there. Now, not to say that the entire existence of many of our interests here, as I sit in my room full of roaches that are definitely not all Paratropes lateralis or Gromphodorina portentosa or what have you. But it's a larger scale phenomena, and the bug hobby has been picking up traction for quite a while now. And so I will be leaving my information there as it is, and perhaps discussing with some other folks in the future as to how to approach this delicate situation. Yes, that's that. TJ, if you are watching the dead stream, there you have it. So let's see what else is going on here. What else is going on in general here. I was fortunate enough to find some Orchicella cincta outside a couple of weeks ago, so that colony should get going. Oh, Dilo says, about how long to final molt banana roaches last? Adult males don't live a terribly long time. And with Species Hobby, I remember, maybe it was even Species Giant. It was one of those two species when I was a wee boy. I had them in a 16-ounce cup, and I was like keeping very fastidious track of how long it took from the first adult female that I found to babies popping up. And I think it was somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks. It was very fast, comparable to Picroscelis for adult females. So adult males, if you receive them as adults, the stress of shipping and reacclimating to your conditions could cause issues. But I would think that adult males should at least live for 2 to 4 months, and adult females maybe a maximum of like 6 to 10. It's kind of hard also because when I have cultures of things, some things will have boom bust cycles, and I don't keep track of individuals. I very much so keep an eyeball on the culture as a whole and make sure, there's tons of roaches. The culture's doing fine, basically. So I think there would probably be value in taking that kind of information in some sort of large compendium of some sort in the future. But honestly, I don't have the time or the patience to do it right now. When I move out and have a full-time employee, different story, but right now I have to focus on keeping the gears turning. So, and yes, Chain says, I know there are some cricket fans here. Are you fascinated by Gryloblata? Yes, I've always wanted to see Gryloblata. I have had kind of a half-hearted attempt to look for them in Washington. And maybe the next time I go out there, I'll do like a full attempt to see them because they're really cool. Dilo, are you noticing babies? If you're seeing babies, that's the sign that everything's fine. And usually what can happen also, depending on how many resources you have available in the enclosure, when you have a big surge of nymphs, they kind of monopolize the resources. And they will kind of push the adults out and can reduce their fitness and could cause them to live shorter lives than they normally would if there were more space or if the nymphs did not cause a tidal wave. So need to know which roach. See, the roaches eating their dead has been something very inconsistent for me. So there were times where like my hissers would do it, and then a lot of them have stopped. There are times where other things like Gyna pretty reliably eat their dead for me. Eublaberus is very hit or miss, but I think it probably depends more on their general diet and perhaps on some other underlying factors. Like I think sometimes if there's a premature death due to, I don't know, a yeast or some other pathogen, they kind of know not to touch the dead body. And so if you have a colony that's doing fine, but you get individuals dying of that because of, genetic difference, it's got to be a Pyralis moth flying around, of genetic differences or just differences in individual fitness, they won't touch the dead. So like I think I remember my Glabrus giganteus used to eat their dead, and they have not done that in like 15 years now. So is it possible they do it when they need more protein for giving birth? They would probably eat it during a dietary deficiency. Oh man, this is bringing me back. There was a day, maybe around 2013 or 2014. back in those wild roach crossing times, the real hit or miss roach crossing times, there was a day where I was determined to feed my entire collection with only household scraps, because I didn't want to go out and buy food or something like that. I was like really determined to prove a point. So I had a bunch of old bread and celery and apples and carrots and whatnot. And so I fed like the whole collection, and it was, it was sizable back then. It wasn't anywhere near as big or as numerous as it is now, but it was sizable. And I got down to the last leg of the feeding, and I can't remember what I was going to feed, but I had a bunch of Gromphorderina oblongonota, and I had too many of them. They were like crowding each other a bit or something like that. And I was like, And I ended up euthanizing several subadults and I think adult males, and I used them to feed the next couple colonies of cockroaches. And it was, or I may have used them to feed their own colonies. So, yeah, so it depends. It really depends on quite a few things. Because you end up with that sort of situation. I think, I want to say that I used them. It may have been the last two containers, so I may have used them to feed their own colony, and then I think I fed the other colony I was feeding was Blabberus colossius Peru. So I'm pretty sure. Again, this is a long time ago now, but I'm pretty sure that's what it ended up being. So yeah, talk about a weird situation there with the whole everything. Let's see what else. Gonna do isopod husbandry tonight. Raise your hand if you've heard me talking about doing isopod and millipede husbandry for over a month and a half now. I think the last time I took care of isopods was September 28th. Actually, it would have been right before the auction, so I could tally things up. So that's the last time I went and did a look in on all my isopods. I have watered maybe 5-6 times since then. And other than that, that's just how it goes. And that's worked for me, and it's worked well enough to produce good quantities of different things. So tonight after the live stream wraps up, which we're going to wrap up pretty tight to 8, I will hit an hour on the little live tally thing there. But I have my good assistant Javier waiting for me. Currently, he's cutting new cloth lids for my underlayments, because it's something that I just cannot focus on sometimes when I have emails and lovely people to talk to and all of that jazz. So yes, let's see. Any other questions? Let's see, the chat slowed down. I'm sorry I didn't catch the Grylo blood question there. I think I was off on a tangent. Let's see what else. Let's have next week melanozosteria. Oh yeah, I've got a good amount of babies. I don't think Junior's here, but I might actually talk about sending him nibs instead of boots. I have to check the colony again. But yeah, they seem to be doing quite well. Lots of ooths still, very small. Show bug now. Let's look at the melanozosteria soror. Let's do it. Oof. Hello, Junior. Speak with the devil and up he shall pop. Show bug. So this is the melanozosteria culture. Pretty dry, from a kind of dryish place. A lot of springtails. Oh yeah, there's a good number in here. I may, just to get you the most bang for your buck, I may still send ooths so you can get a good quantity of them. Sorry, I was going to show a piece of bark with one of the adult females on it, and it literally hopped off of the bark, and it didn't just fall, like projected itself. So here's a nymph. So proof that they bred, at least. It's a manageable proof that they bred, so I don't have to get the whole bark and stuff out of there. But they seem just the same as like Eurycotus. I would feel pretty comfortable keeping Eurycotus and Procera in this style of enclosure. A lot more nymphs hatching out, it seems now. So yeah, I would consider this, based on my past success with polyzosterine roaches. I would say this colony is definitely pretty in the clear for getting established. I will not speak too soon. Kyle, have you ever used hickory leaves? I have some dead dry ones. I think they're fine so far. I think juglanone is like a mid-speed breaking down phytochemical. So you may want to at least like leach them a bit or let them age a bit and start decomposing before offering them. But otherwise, it should be fine. So I got to catch. Oh, yeah. As she goes to the other side. All right, get on my hand. There we go. Here we go. All right. Melanozosteria soror. It's a polyzosterine that is introduced to Hawaii, I think from New Zealand originally, or maybe from mainland Australia. Oh. Not quite as like hold on to your hands as Eurycotus are, although she's slowing down a bit. She's calming down a bit. She's acclimating to my hand. Yeah. So probably good practice for keeping those other old world polyzosterines, like all the polyzosteria and whatnot from Australia, should those ever pop up. Boy, that would be pretty nifty in my lifetime to get a culture of those going. That would be a real accomplishment, I feel. So yeah, Melanozosteria. Okay, now have you ever had book lice in your enclosures? Yes. Book lice pop up all the time in different enclosures. I've tried to culture them separately sometimes. I do have one happy, healthy colony of book lice that came from Will. There are some larger species I would like to work with. I can't devote too much time to pursuing them because I don't have a firm enough understanding of what exactly they need to do well long term, and it is a better use of my brain power and resources to work with springtails, in my opinion. Let me put this back and get back to chat. Another polyzosterine roach I need to bring up in a minute here, but let me catch up on chat a little bit. Dialos is not seeing much in the way of new mints yet on the bananas, but I saw one make an ooth. All right, as long as they're not ejecting the ooths, you should probably try and sex the ones that are dying so you can see if they're male or female. Because again, males may not live very long in your situation, but get the job done. Tennyson asks, I have a quick question. One of my male Blabberus Honduras males has been attempting to fly. I've seen him also vibrate. I think that might be associated with courtship or finding females or emitting pheromones. So it's fine. I know sometimes people have Blabberus giganteus that will chase each other around. Males will bite at each other, things like that. Not something that I've seen in my colonies. Might just be a husbandry or population dynamics difference. How many bug you eat? Asked Anthony Green. I haven't eaten many bugs lately. It's kind of a poor time of year for them. Some egg says, I've seen various winged blabberids pop their wings or snap them. They make a pop sound. Yeah, I've seen them do that. I think sometimes they like if they get grit or dirt on their abdomen trapped between their wings and the abdomen, they'll do that, and then they'll usually kick it or like twist their abdomen to try and get it off of there. Another polyzosterine cockroach. My first success with this species, actually, and TJ, if he's here, will be happy to hear this because I'm pretty sure his colony and everybody else's colonies of these in the United States crashed. Junior, I think you're another candidate for somebody who may have some or maybe not, is Drimoplanida semivita. This is a species that I have had opportunities to work with multiple times. And I think maybe 3 times between the first time and now. This will be my 4th time trying them. This is a relatively common cockroach that is native to Australia. I'm reading off the Wikipedia page. Native to Australia and introduced to New Zealand. and it's another polyzosterine. It's larger and flatter, but very similar in appearance to the melanozosteria we just looked at. But this is a species that Matt K on the Roach forum had a big colony. There's an old forum thread where he's got them in a critter keeper, and there's like hundreds of nymphs, and they're like third or fourth instar. It looks so, it's so that roach keeping vibe, basically, as I shake everything. It's such a roach keeping vibe to see like a handful of adults and like a bunch of babies just having the best time in a critter keeper. It's such a roach vibe. So anyway, so there's that little picture, but they never really got established in the United States. TJ's had them on and off. A couple other people have had them on and off and gotten breeding on them, but nobody seems to have had a colony last for like several years. So it seems like every time it's new stock that sort of pops up. That's good to know, Junior, in case I'm actually screwing up with them. But I feel pretty confident because I got my first babies out of the remaining pair that I had. And maybe I talked about this. I think I told TJ about this. Maybe I talked about it on the stream. I can't remember. But how I checked on them and I added some more wood to their enclosure, some more active white rotting wood, and how I thought I buried the male alive because I saw one in a little chamber at the front of the enclosure, and I was like, oh no. Then I looked at it a little bit closely, and it wasn't the male, it was a female, and she had dug into the wood herself. And so now I've got some nymphs hatching. Very happy that I have results with the species. It's been a long time coming. And I can only hope that with other species that I have failed with or continue to fail with, that I will one day have a breakthrough like this. So Tennyson asked, do you have Handstrom's runner roaches, getting some soon was running to make a good fever? Might also ask TJ if you don't know since I'm getting them from him. They don't seem to breed explosively for me. I actually just had to restart my colony with stock from TJ. I think they like it warmer overall. And I think that in terms of like climbing and flying and whatnot ability, if you want a reliable feeder roach, it's pretty much the same, but a lot easier at that size. You should probably look into Simplos palens because morphologically they're extremely similar, especially with the male-female sexual dimorphism. Dilo asks, what critter keeper brands do you know which hold in hissers fine? These are all faunariums, but the Lee's critter keepers work just fine. The only thing I've noticed about the faunariums, and at this point I had to commit to using the Lee's for the isopods because of the lid colors and also because I was able to get them from a supplier at the time when I get a lot of them who was giving them to me for close to wholesale and trade value. But the faunariums work great with an underlayment. The underlayment is really the key. You can keep pretty much everything in with an underlayment on a critter keeper or a faunarium. And yeah, see, the basic ones do keep even dwarf hisser nymphs from getting out. I have not had any problems with hissers escaping my bins for quite a while now with the gasket method and the roach no crossing. Adam Messias, Adam, I don't know how to pronounce your name again. I probably had this moment before too on the stream. From Roachville. Was the one who introduced this to me, and he, is like, and it's wonderful, and it's food safe, and it's inorganic, and it lasts a long time. And I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I heard that about like, fluon and that ant stuff and all this other stuff. I'm not too convinced, but I'll give it a try. I'll see if there's something to this, over the Vaseline crew over here. And then he gave me a sample of it, and I used it on some things. It's like, my God, I can never go back to using Vaseline. This stuff is just so amazing all around. So anyways, Critter Keeper, underlayment, Roach no crossing stops pretty much everything from getting out and getting in, the exception being some springtails occasionally. Do all glomerus in culture that have been CB live moss are all captive species of pillipedes in general? I was talking with Sebastian Boyd. I think Sebastian has been on here a few times. He's a millipede enthusiast, and sorry, Sebastian, if I'm underselling you. But we were recently talking about glomerus and their mouth parts and things like that. And basically, he sent me a link to a publication where they looked at glomerulus mouth parts. And I honestly haven't read the publication yet, but I was reading what he was telling me, the important information applicable to us from the publication. And basically, glomerates have really poor, soft, crappy mouth parts. And so it's likely that moss is probably an all-around millipede favorite food because it's very soft. It can be in various states of decay on the piece that you give to them, etc. And I think Javier's cleaning something downstairs. Anyways, so it's possible that they're kind of restricted by the food that they're offered, and I was curious about many of them having a preference for brown rotted wood, which tends to be quite soft and malleable over white rotted wood. And so I don't know, but my biggest success with glomerus ever was using brown rot wood, and so I feel like that's a good spring launching point. When I found onomerous in the wild, it's usually in brown rotted wood, at least at the spot where Ellen had taken me, although they can also be found in leaf litter, although those could be a different species or genus. Size enclosures, Dialos is underlayment. The underlayment is this muslin material that I have that goes between the lid and the actual enclosure, and it seals off the gap between the two of those, so things, if they try to get out, they basically just end up on the muslin instead of actually escaping. What size enclosure do you use for your larger roaches, or do you use faunarium for literally everything? Larger roaches, biggest stuff, Archimandrita, Blabrus gigantea, Species Honduras are all in 10 gallons. I'm pretty convinced that you could breed pretty much any cockroach with a 10-gallon tank in reliable numbers. But I use all the way down to these smaller, they're like medium or small, not tiny, small faunariums. The tiny ones are just too small. They dry out too fast. You can't have a good gradient of conditions, etc. But these smaller ones work well for getting things started. Let's see. Vaseline and gasket bends says Tennyson. Nothing has ever escaped as far as I know. I also use micro metal mesh on all enclosures other than my current Blabrus enclosure. Some egg says, Kyle, I saw the video about allo grooming in that night roach a while ago. Just want to say I've seen even more convincing allo grooming in Leucia hermetica. My thing with the behavior is this would be subject to some pretty heavy experimentation, but I wonder how much of it is this is a social behavior and how much of this is something smells kind of tasty on this thing that kind of smells like me. I think it's kind of safe for me to like give it a little bit of a nibble. How much of it is it an active social behavior? Is the point of the grooming to groom, or is it just a derived grazing, feeding behavior? And because the roach is comfortable, because the area smells like pheromones of other roaches, and the things nearby that the antennae are touching smell like another roach because it is another roach, they're just sort of inclined to do this natural sort of grazing behavior. And it just so happens that the other roach tolerates it because it's another, again, they feel safe together in that space. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how exactly you would test for that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a relatively common cockroach trait, and if it's seen in Lamproblata and in ectobiids, and seen in blabrids, and there might be some evidence for it in bladids. How it may be an ancestral trait for a lot of roaches behaviorally, and termites do it. We know that termites do it. So that's pretty good argument there. The roach no crossing stuff sounds kind of ad campaigny, but it really is awesome. Says Chain, don't use it around midges. Yes, it will, much like all other drying barriers, Vaseline and oils and whatnot. any fungus gnats, and many other small things that come into contact, including some small roaches. Sometimes I've seen Neoblatella get stuck in it. Adults that were flying around like idiots, getting stuck from behind into it, will get stuck in it. So, but fortunately, you can just kind of refresh it with a warm, damp cloth. You can wipe down or wipe up or whatever, or wipe sideways to clear off anything that's accrued in it, and then put a new coat on, and just leave it depending on how thick you went with it. In Luki Armanica, it was a nymph grooming an adult male that was eating dog food. Again, it could just be happenstance. I don't even know what exactly was happening with the Lamproblata. We know nothing about that in Lamproblata. Although I did find out there was a good publication on groom patterns and styles. It was all auto groom. It was all auto grooming work though on different groups of cockroaches. But they were basically saying that different groups of cockroaches have different grooming styles. There's some universally shared grooming styles of cockroaches, and I can't remember the exact. It's like some things like picks the leg up over the head and grooms down the leg, and they had a whole key code system for these different grooming styles. But basically, what they found was that you could confirm some taxonomic relationships simply by looking at which species had which grooming styles. So you could tell that there were patterns that ectobiids and blabberids had that blattids did not have, and vice versa, and that were shared with close relatives. So I thought that was really cool. I love that stuff. Nowadays, it's very it's a very pushed off to the side kind of way of looking at things. I feel like it's been kind of some aspects of the behavioral approach to taxonomy have sort of been tabled in favor of genetics, obviously, but then you have to see how the genes express and what things are expressing and whatnot. So I feel like it's a very undervalued tool for looking at taxonomic relationships, at least with respect to invertebrates. So, and I would go one step further to extend that to just some behavioral things in general, life history type stuff, like Parcoblata deserti and Parcoblata fulvescens are, there's a lot of morphological overlap, but they prefer or can be found in similar environments. You find deserti in dry, sandy places, and fulvescens can inhabit some very dry places where it occurs in the eastern United States too. It does have a wider range than that. It's more of a generalist than deserti is, but the basis is there. So I would feel pretty confident in saying those two are sister taxa. Same with Notha and Caudali. Notha is found under bark in miscellaneous places out west in not arid places, and Caudali is found in, from what Alan has told me, primarily in like tree cavities. Very specific habitat that Caudali seems to like is tree cavities. So as I say this, as my Caudali culture is currently in the cold room, through a lot of stuff in the cold room this year. All my dynasties that I want to get adults of are in the cold room currently. How have your go through here? Luki Hormeticus. Some egg says Luki Hormeticus seems pretty social to me. What with the usual male who stays above ground? I have so many Luki Hormetica subcincta and varicosa that there's just all sizes out constantly. There's quite a few of them in there. How have your Masola been doing? Asked Tennyson. Mine are getting so big already. Phenomenal. I haven't gotten another litter yet from the original pair, but the nymphs are subadult or very close, and so I think that probably by February or March they will be just as big as my other Portentosa colonies that I have going. Which UCR is now up for grabs. Damn it! This is a very important thing I needed to talk about. I was going to bring this up at the beginning of the stream, and I got distracted by all of you lovely people in this lovely bug conversation overall. Love it, love it, love it. I'm gonna bring the microphone a little bit closer. I have been toying around with the idea of taking the month of December off asterisk. So once I get out the auction orders and the last of the other orders that are kind of waiting in the queue right now, I'm thinking that this should touch on the Kickstarter stuff too. I'm thinking that I'm going to, or I want to take the month of December off to catch up on things. I am not necessarily behind on bug work, but there are things that are sort of starting to accrue that need to be done that I really should do, and I haven't been able to justify taking the time to do, like making new isopod containers for incoming species and strains, or for new strain crosses, doing a good hard look at all the roach colonies and redoing some of them. There's a lot of flower pot fungus mycelium creeping around in the Eurycotus decipiens enclosure, and I think I would like to do something about that because it seems to alter the soil chemistry such that it is not favorable to, or is not ideal for roaches or for cleanup crews. Things like that. I need to split my beetle rack and make 2 more beetle racks. I need to all my millipedes, which I have not done anything to since the Arizona trip. I think it was before or after the Arizona trip. Need to probably be completely refreshed with new leaves and rotting wood and all this other stuff, and split up, because some of them, the Leptogoniulus sorornis, are like overflowing in there. And it's like, how are you doing that? I haven't done anything to you in like months. So I feel like it would be I'm obviously not take a month-long vacation, but a month off of taking orders, and which would be nice during the holidays. Don't have to worry about things arriving late or getting delayed and things like that. So the Kickstarter, which was the focus of, hello Duchess, good to see you. The focus of last week's live stream, I've had a bit of a snag with the fact that my bank account is in my name, but they might need the bank account associated with the Kickstarter thing to be in the business's name. It seems like a hassle, like a day of me having to go and do something, and I just don't want to do that. So if anybody has any other suggestions for for that, what I might even do, so I do have a functioning donation thingy on the Roach Care Guide page that is wired to the PayPal account. And maybe I'll just put a big post on the homepage that says, here's what I'm going to be doing for this time frame. Here it comes, Alan. No, I'm not getting an OnlyFans, Alan. Yes, there's another thing, Dial. Thank you. Not just that, but the website needs an update horribly. The last time I updated anything meaningfully was probably back in like March of last year. So I have species to add. I have pages to update with husbandry information, all this stuff. So I do still need to take, in addition to redoing and revisiting the Cockroach Care Guide, I do need to do site work. There's stuff that needs to be done that, again, I can't justify when I'm selling bugs, sell bug now, staying on top of emails and whatnot. So the availability needs to be updated. Species need to be added. I need to get stuff off of the new species page and into the standard pages. I need to annoy Chris with the trajectory of roach crossing into the future. So obviously that doesn't directly affect everybody in here, because I'm sure a lot of you. The other thing is, like, I like the people who are like, my son wants nothing more than giant cockroaches for Christmas. And then I'd have to be like, no, I'm sorry, ma'am. I cannot send you giant cockroaches to your son who's wanted giant cockroaches his entire life. So I might put a Christmas clause, no pun intended, a Christmas clause in for if you're buying a small quantity of cockroaches for yourself or for a loved one for Christmas, I can make an exception. But I don't want the, like, pages and pages and pages of stuff that I've had to go through the last couple of weeks. I want leverage giganteans for Christmas, please. I really don't want to have to do that. It's a lot of time. I have to make all those holes and all those enclosed and all the little cups that I ship stuff in. Now with Christmas coming up, I'm going to have to insulate. I'm going to have to explain to people in the emails like, okay, live arrival with this. You know, even though it's on the website, I still have to tell people about it because people still ask. You know, could live arrival guarantee with this? Oh well, maybe we'll send these extremely rare cockroaches or isopods. We'll need to send them through Express, and that's going to be an upgrade to your original quote. And I just want to deal with it. Then I have other stuff that needs to be done. So my son wants nothing more than 10 pounds of grain mites in his stocking for Christmas. Oh, Roach Crossing, please help us. So that's where I'm at with this. I will probably make the decision around Thanksgiving that the final decision. I'm really kind of inclined to say I'm going to do it, but there's a couple of sales that are pending. I want to make sure go through so that I am not strapped for cash during the holiday season. Not that it's a huge issue, but again, got to keep the gears turning. And I have a property to buy, this spring. So, Kyle, what's your favorite native plant? Rudbeckia, Genius Rudbeckia. It's hard to pick a specific one, but I love Herta because it's a beautiful weed. Your son needs different type of help, Anthony, says Alan. That if anybody here is contemplating an order, it would be smart to, who doesn't already have a pending order, I have to say, as Chris and Junior here, it would be a smart idea to shoot an email and start that dialogue sooner than later, because I may, again, be taking December off to do a bunch of things. And I could really use spring auction. No, it's like 4 months away. I will do it. I will probably do it before spring Tinley. I like the idea of cutting in with all the cool bugs before Tinley happens. Phil Dresty, hello. I don't think I've seen you before. Maybe once. It's hard sometimes. Yes, Roach Crossing is my full-time job. This is what I do full-time, all day, every day, is bugs and bug accessories in various facets. So I think that I will be retracting myself from the Kickstarter situation in favor of the easier, far more streamlined donations and explanation. Marshall Arachnids, hello, yes, for auction. Far more streamlined situation of a donation thing on the homepage with the full explanation and full up front and center thing there, and hopefully that will go over as well as a formal Kickstarter will. Are you taxed from what he sent you for Ocean such since is technically your income? Yes, I am. I'm taxed on everything. Every dollar that comes into Roach Crossing, I am taxed for. Live chat meetup at Tinley. I wouldn't be, if I streamline next year's fall auction, I wouldn't be opposed to doing a meetup at Tinley next year. I probably will not vend, but a meetup could be fun to go and, me and all the Roach boys with an I, which is gender neutral. Me and all the Roach boys meeting up at Tinley in the fall to go run around and see who's smuggled what in and who has cool bugs available. How long did it take you to get to a point where Roach Crossing was? It has technically been my full-time job ever since I incorporated. I worked with Creating Sustainable Landscapes LLC to sort of get myself 15 years of depression, to sort of get myself out of the house and get some other experience and just sort of prove to myself that I could do something, that I could be a responsible employee if the situation ever needed it. And also because it's a great opportunity to work with native plants, and Drew gave me lots of plants, so that was nice. But I did that basically as to sort of do that, and I had considered doing both Roach Crossing and buying Drew's business as he was retiring, and Roach Crossing just takes up too much of my time, and I actually enjoy plants as the thing that I do to get away from bugs, as the completely casual thing, and so that's how it went. I've had at least, Marshall Arachnid says, I've had at least 2 folks tell me to convince you to come to Tinley and split 2 booths with us. If you guys can get booths, let me know. I would love to be in on that conversation. Mike Underwood was who I have traditionally vended with, and he's been pestering the Tinley people for a while now and all this stuff. And there's all you have to get your foot in the door at the Prior show and all that stuff. Did you work at McDonald's? No, I've never worked at McDonald's. My employment history is Roach Crossing. I worked for the Environmental Interpretive Center at U of M Dearborn, both as an intern and then as a interpreter naturalist for some time. And Roach Crossing kind of got in the way of pursuing that, which was fine. It was sort of my time to leave there anyways. And then I worked for Drew, and I worked for Roach Crossing, and that's what I do. I was, oh boy, this is a deep cut. This is an interesting story. Last thing, and then I got to get going to do isopods. Javier is only here until like 11 anyways. What's the last time you were at Tinley? 2018. So it'd be 5 years if we definitely could split booths with you at Schaumburg, but we had to fight tooth and nail to get 1 booth for Tinley. Yeah, that's how it goes, Marshall Arachnids. But again, if you manage to get somewhere, let me know, because what I would probably end up doing is I would end up doing an extremely casual show where I brought like this. I know this is a lot to some people. I'm bringing like 50 containers of bulk cultures of stuff. Basically counts like we're at the auction, but like, all right, here's 200 rubber ducky isopods, $100, and put it on the table, and just try to make the table money back and enough to go run off and play around with and buy food and whatnot. That's probably what I would end up doing. So, possibly send me a photo of icepod 7 to see how you do them and how the soil looks. Yes, Dilo, I can text you or I can email you my phone number, and you can send me that, and I can send you pictures of stuff. Email me though, so I remember. Where was the last thing? What was the last thing I was just about to say? I was going to wrap up here with Tinley stuff. I was employed through U of M Ann Arbor for a very brief period of time when I was an intern or working as a naturalist at U of M Dearborn. And what happened was the data they were looking to collect was, one, I don't think they were going to get good data with the way that they were doing things with respect to what they wanted me to do. And 2, for minimum wage at the time and the amount of skill required to do this work, it was not worth it. I had to wake up and get out to do this work. It was pollinator surveying, where they wanted to know, they were looking at species diversity of pollinators at 2 survey sites at U of M, and one of them they were checking frequently, one they were checking semi-frequently, but it was a walk to get to the second site. The funds were not enough to cover it. It was going to be interfering with my work at the interpretive center, because I had to get up even earlier to go out and do this pollinator sampling thing. It's like, why couldn't you just do it in the evening? Why does it have to be checked in the morning? I understand you're standardizing these things, but like in this particular situation, and they wanted me to, every time I surveyed, I had to identify every flowering plant within 100-foot radius of the sample. Now, that's not too crazy if you're out in the field area, in the natural area where I was doing the sampling. was not too difficult, but still for somebody who was a sophomore or a junior in college at the time, that's a lot of knowledge to have on hand, for one. And for two, at the organic garden, to identify every single flowering plant, you have to be an expert, because you're not just dealing with, this is the species level. You're not just dealing with straight species of things, of the weeds and whatnot. You're also dealing with all of those crop species. All the cultivars have been created by how they could expect to get the data that they were claiming to give, or were claiming to be getting from this surveying. I was about to swear, everybody. I want you to know I stopped myself. It was insane. Like, to go and to get, they weren't, and when I talked to this guy, he was like, I'm having problems identifying some of these plants in the organic. Oh, okay. I go up there and it's like, what is this? Like, I know it's in the genus, it's a zinnia, but like, what is, let's just skip that one and let's go look at some. It's like, this is not going to get you the quality of data that you're going to be asserting with this pollination sampling if you do not do what your methods say you're doing in this sample. Anyways, so that was the other thing, and I think it was after maybe like a week of doing that, I bowed out of that. I was like, sorry, I can't do this. I have my work at the interpretive center. I have my bug stuff. I can't do it. So yes, it would have been time consuming, and it's like, you do not understand the scope of what you have undertaken, that you are paying undergrads to do this work. But anyways, I mean, catch up in the chat and then wrap things up. Vending, a lot of talk about Tinley. This year, apparently, Tinley had a lot of millipedes, a lot of fresh millipedes, as they say. Gives us a Paraplaneta cameo. Oh, Paraplaneta missionary. Hello, welcome. Dynamo Terror also joining in as I'm about to wrap up. I should also say, how do you begin doing cultivar stuff without the planters giving? Exactly. You need, like, nowadays, I feel pretty confident with some things. There are some zinnia cultivars and things like that I've seen enough times, but the peppers, the tomatoes, all of these things. And some of those tomatoes, it's the different varieties are considered different species. Like the currant tomatoes and the Lycopersicum sativum, or whatever the species name is for the standard tomatoes. It's like, how could you possibly expect anybody other than an expert to give you the information you want here? And it matters for different species of tomatoes, in the very least. But how am I supposed to tell them apart from the vegetative stuff? I'm an undergrad. So anyways, manuals of cultivars, yes, they are often out of date. And who knows what these planters from all over the Metro Detroit area at the organic garden come up with there and plant stuff. And honestly, in the springtime, just the wild mustards will drive you crazy. There are species of weeds there that I have never seen anywhere else in Michigan at the organic garden. And the mints, things like that too. What if they're hybrid volunteer crops? Exactly. So, it was ridiculous. So, anyways, next week, guys, no live stream because it is Thanksgiving. And I hope that everybody has an absolutely lovely Thanksgiving, however you celebrate it, and lovely time off and time with family, time with your bugs, time with everything, basically. We will resume the live stream the following week, and I think that puts us into December. Mr. Kim Wisman. Mr. Kim, we're going to show them to your parents. Oh, well, you can show them a dead stream and say, I said, shout out to Anthony Green. Yes, a good idea. Marshall pestered me about the ivories in Schaumburg. I completely forgot about the ivories. What else was I saying? Mr. Kim Wisman has agreed to come on the live stream and to share his experience in Arizona, not just with bugs, but also with Kim has primarily worked with herps over the years. Was the first person to captive breed Arizona mountain king snakes. He currently works with a staggering number of other of snakes at the moment, and not just like, yes, this is my cinnamon peachy backwards upside down flip ball python. Just ignore the spider wobble. It's totally healthy that this is found in this this type of ball python. No, it's like all kinds of different species of house snakes, different localities of colubrids. He's bred the pink. Wild pink color form of the racers before, all kinds of stuff, wonderful stuff. And so he's going to come on. And so if anybody has any questions about herps, minus an E there, very important, about herps from Arizona, or just raising different herps in captivity, or things about Arizona that he would have better expertise of than I would, where to find certain herps there. He, again, underselling his bug capabilities. He did not work with captive breeding stuff too much, but with collecting things, top-notch knowledge of different beetles, especially of tiger beetles, Saturnian moths, and whatnot in Arizona. He has insane knowledge of all those things, and so he will be here at some point in December. He is also the originator of the Wissmann giant mealworms, also. Him and his wife, Christine. Yes, so tune in for that. It'll be a special live stream. It'll be in the title for when I schedule it, etc. Anytime in December. I'm going to try to get him on before Christmas, so we'll see how it goes. You should be on before Christmas, so. All right, everybody. Thank you for a wonderful live stream, going 20 minutes over my intended time, but that's okay. It's just how it is sometimes. I get everything in that I wanted to say. May your cultures ever be bountiful. Have a lovely Thanksgiving, and I will see you all in 2 weeks for some holly jolly roach wiggle. Good night, everybody.